Welcome to the podcast and a tour of my session setup here at my studios. This is the new Yamaha PHX Phoenix kit, the top end, the high-end drum kit from Yamaha. Very revolutionary design and drum creation, and it's quite incredible, quite profound in how much difference it actually does make, and how much audible difference there is on the drums themselves. Is pretty amazing. Let's get started just going through what's here. The first thing is the 7x10 inch tom, the 8x12 inch tom, it's a 13x14 floor tom, and a 15x16 floor tom. The kick is a 18x22 inch kick, and out there to the right side, the satellite drum that I'm now using is a 14x16 in diameter satellite kick drum, and that's put up on a little kick drum lift so the beater hits the drum in the center. And the snare drum here is one of my prototype signature snare drums, which will be released a little later on, and that is a 4 5/8 by 14 inch maple drum. Also, you'll notice on this kit is some of my signature Wedge series of instruments. The groove wedge, of course, the primary instrument of the Wedge series for an incredible cross stick sound. You have back here on the second floor tom one of the Cascara wedges from the Wedge family, and there's also a jingle wedge which is on a secondary snare drum under the hi-hat, which I don't use unless called upon here in the studio. I just start with this basic setup, and then I add or subtract things based upon the composition and the record that we're doing. And just about every record I use this exact same setup, and 90% of the time use my snare drum, but I do have the snare drum rack stuff here that we went through in the tour of the studio podcast, which you can check out. Moving on with the heads, all my snare drums I use Fiberskin 3 Diplomat heads, and it's incredible brush tone, and I really like the flap that it gives on the backbeats as well. And Jeff Hamilton kind of hit me to this head, and Steve Smith and Jeff and I and Danny Serafine and several other drummers are using that. Toms are coated ambassadors on top and clear ambassadors on the bottom. Of course, all the heads are Remo drum heads my entire career. And the two kick drums are Renaissance Power Stroke 3 batter side heads, and on the front heads are Renaissance Power Stroke 3 resonant heads. And then of course there's one of my signature sub kicks that we use out there on the primary kick drum. So that's a SKRM 100 sub kick that's always used out there. All Yamaha hardware, of course, and the cymbals are all Zildjian cymbals, of course. Again, my entire career I've used Zildjian. Starting over here on this crash cymbal, the primary crash cymbal is an 18-inch K custom session crash, one of the cymbals that Steve Gadd helped design. And my ride cymbal that is just my baby, that's taken me so many years to find, and then I finally found the perfect one, is a Constantinople 20-inch high bell thin high pitch ride. A SoundLab prototype that was created several years ago by Paul Francis at the Zildjian factory. And this sizzle cymbal is a favorite of mine. It's a 22-inch K Constantinople medium thin low, and it's got 8 rivets around the outside of it. An incredible cymbal, great musical cymbal, and just creates an entire mood when it's hit. It's just one of my favorites. This crash cymbal is a 17-inch A custom crash. I've had it for a very long time. Probably my favorite crash cymbal ever. I actually found it at a trade show on a drum set, just sitting there on display, and I hit it by accident, and I begged Zildjian that I could just take it from the trade show, and I've had it ever since on my setup. So these hi-hats are some prototype hi-hats that I'm working on as well, and that Paul Francis and Leon at the Zildjian factory have put together. And it's a prototype top and a Constantinople master sound bottom. They're 14-inch hi-hats, and that's something that we're working on finalizing. But I'm very happy with these hi-hats. They've been on just about every record, and and session and movie, everything that I've done for probably the past 2 or 3 years, including the Arrival record and the Behind the Glass DVD project. So that's the basic cymbal setup. I do add a couple cymbals now and again, a 16-inch EFX sometimes over the hi-hat and a 6-inch splash, but generally speaking, this is what I start with for a session. And again, you know, the KISS effect, keep it simple, stupid, right? Keep it simple in a session. You know, when you walk in and, you know, you got tons of stuff going on, the engineer's going, oh boy, what do we got going on here? You know, he's got a mic up everything. Everything can cause a phasing issue. There's all kinds of different problems with using a ton of different gear on sessions. So I keep it simple. I got my sound that I'm used to getting, and, you know, it's sort of developed into, you know, what is my personal voice on the instrument, and I'm sticking to that as much as I possibly can. They're all Shure Brothers microphones. The classic SM57 on the snare, gotta have the 57. There's an XL57 inside of the snare drum, and that faces upside down, facing the snare element, and that's on a Randy May shock-mounted internal mount. And but it's basically an SM57 microphone, and that's used to capture the snare element, the bottom snare mic. Works great. It gets rid of the phasing issues between the top and bottom snare mic facing each other, and also gets rid of a ton of the bleed of the kick drum in the bottom snare mic. So perfect for that. The SM81 condenser mics are out here on the hi-hat, and if I use an auxiliary hi-hat, I use them on that as well. All the toms are mic'd with these great new mics, the KSM 27s, which are condenser microphones. Very great full range sound, similar to the KSM 32 or 44s that we use for overheads in the rooms. But I started to use these on the toms and was just blown away by it. Ryan Smith at Shure recommended them to me, and they have just been profound as far as getting the sound of these drums on the tape. It's been really great. So all KSM 27s on all 4 toms. Inside of the primary kick drum is a Beta 52, again on a Randall May shock-mounted mount, and that's positioned about a little towards the resonant side of the head, back about maybe 10 or 12 inches, and inside of the drum kind of facing a little off axis of the beater impact point. And the satellite kick drum we actually mic with a regular Beta 52 on a stand out front on the resonant side. The idea behind that drum is to get the resonance out of the drum and have a real open sound, you know, for drum and bass or hip hop or a straight ahead playing. And the overhead mics up here are KSM 44s, the Shure condenser mics. And then there's 2 room mics that are permanently positioned here in the studio, and those are both KSM 44 mics as well. And they're back about 12 feet from the drums and up about maybe 7.5 to 8 feet in the air. So you get a really, really big drum sound here in this particular room. We treated the room with all Orlex acoustic treatments, and we also have the drums set up on the Orlex hover deck, which is an acoustic platform used to get more bottom end out of the drum. Last but not least, back here on the far right side is my Meinl multi-bell. It's a signature cowbell that I helped develop with a fully adjustable mute on the inside. Okay, thanks for joining me for a run-through of my primary drum setup, the Yamaha PHX Phoenix kit here at RMI Studios. We'll see you on the next podcast.